The KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans.
He came back today, he said every single thing that his critics on the left want. So now you have crowds who are saying we didn't say it soon enough.
The reason for all of this attention, the reason the media is covering this thing like it's a Super Bowl, is because of this narrative that Donald Trump blatantly reached out to white racists to get elected.
Defense Secretary James Mattis says if North Korea sends a missile toward the U.S., it will be war.
It's been announced by North Korea's state media that Kim Jong-un has backed down from the nuclear showdown with President Trump.
Today, Alabama voters will decide which Republican will run for Attorney General Jeff Sessions' vacant Senate seat. Polls show incumbent Senator Luther Strange and former Judge Roy Moore leading the pack.
The latest rocket from SpaceX is currently on its way to the International Space Station with the most powerful computer to ever operate in space.
Smash Mouth.
Hi. Sometimes we do
Hi.
remix on this show.
I love the song.
The original is better, though. And I know you're getting old when you're like, the original is better.
I know, but there are these rules where we can only play it a certain number of times, and so we sometimes have to use sound-alikes.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
They call it fair use or something,
Something
right?
like that.
Some legal term.
Well, good morning to all of you. Happy Tuesday morning. Hope you're
good
waking
morning.
up feeling good with us this morning.
We got a busy day, and we start this hour with a Fox News alert. Well, maybe locked and loaded worked last week because the guy screen left, Kim Jong-un, has decided not to launch any missiles toward Guam. Apparently, he met with his senior officers yesterday at a military base in North Korea, and they gave him the prognosis, and that was, if you launch a missile, we're all toast.
That's right.
Exactly. Well, this is the latest statement from the leader of North Korea. Seems to be pulling back a bit, saying if the Yankees persist in their extremely dangerous, reckless actions on the Korean peninsula and its vicinity, testing the self-restraint of the DPRK, the North will make an important decision, as it's already declared. Really a shift, Pete, from the language we've heard from them just recently.
Of course. We are all Yankees today, and I love that. Call us Yankees more often. It's the classic propaganda. It's perfect. But you mentioned it, Steve, when you said it. Apparently he made the decision after meeting at a command post and examining military plans presented to him by all of his senior officers. Like, what is your military plan? Okay, we're going to launch missiles at Guam, and then they're going to kill us. Then we're all gone.
You know,
because they said they would.
Considering the fact that Kim Jong-un has been known to take family members out in public and shoot them with missile launchers.
Yes.
You know, it's daunting to be a military leader in North Korea and give the boss bad news.
That's true.
What are you talking about?
Okay, guys.
We can't beat the United States.
This is Kim Jong-un. Okay, guys, level with me here. What's going to happen if we do this? Sir, you don't want to do this.
And you know what? Try leveling with General James Mad Dog Mattis.
Yeah.
Here's what he said in response.
If they fire at the United States, it could escalate into war very quickly. Yes, that's called war. If they shoot at it. If they do that, then it's game on.
It is game on. You know what's interesting, as we talk a little bit about the missiles that North Korea has been launching, you know, the conventional wisdom is that because their biggest trading partner is China, they would probably get some of the technology from China. But there's a story out this morning that apparently our analysts have been looking at that particular pattern as depicted in the video of that missile, and it looks like it's either from Russia or the Ukraine. They're suggesting neither country knew about it, but it's just one of those things where, you know, after the Cold War, things disappear.
Right.
Well, between Russia, China, and frankly, Iran, there's that collaboration axis there, the sharing of technology and missile capabilities that's really scary. That's also what makes this win, and call it that. It is a win, very important. It was brinksmanship, it was a stare down, and North Korea, Kim Jong-un, blinked at President Trump.
Right.
That's a big statement and a demonstration that when you talk tough and do real things, you can make an impact.
He did make it clear, I could change my mind at any moment. So we don't know where this is going eventually, but certainly a change in tone and a rhetoric that is tougher than we've probably seen from anyone else in recent history.
But think about it. Last week, so many people in the mainstream media were saying about President Trump's rhetoric, it was inappropriately provocative. And yet, you fast forward a week, after the stock market did drop one day, but it has since rebounded, maybe the tough rhetoric worked because Kim Jong-un and his men realized, wait a minute, fire and fury, locked and loaded, they mean business.
Well, and it was directed at North Korea, but also China, right? The most important player in this whole conversation. Who knows? They might have played a role behind the scenes that we're not aware of.
I take your point, but the U.S. is the most important player in this whole equation. We forced China's hand. China didn't want to do this.
But China keeps North Korea afloat. China's the reason they're surviving today.
But they've wanted North Korea to float. So we're the one that forced their hand to say, hey, back down. But I take your point. China's got to do it.
Someone has got to step up. All right. Well, also covering this morning the recent events in Charlottesville. The Justice Department wrapping up its investigation into the Charlottesville attack as the suspect remains behind bars without bail.
Now, the police chief there is setting the record straight, saying his officers were not told to stand down.
Ellison Barber is live in Charlottesville, Virginia, with the very latest.
Good morning to you all. Lots of criticism here in Charlottesville for the police and city officials. Many people are asking why the police didn't do more to stop the violence when it started. Charlottesville Police Chief Al Thomas said yesterday he has regrets about this weekend, but didn't lay out specifics, only saying he regrets that 3 lives were lost and saying that the weekend was tragic.
You or the mayor or anyone on the mayor's staff instruct law enforcement not to make arrests unless approved by the mayor?
No, and I'd like to know who that officer is who allegedly made those remarks. That is simply not true.
A judge denied bail for James Fields Jr., at least until he meets his court-appointed lawyer. The judge said Fields could not afford an attorney, but could not be represented by the public defender's office because someone working in that office is a relative of a victim of the car attack. So yesterday, the judge assigned him a different lawyer. Fields is charged with second-degree murder, accused of driving the Dodge Challenger that plowed into 2 other cars in a group of people protesting the white supremacists who said they came to Charlottesville to protest the removal of a Confederate statue. Fields was photographed marching with supremacist groups before the attack here on 4th Street. The Ohio native could face federal charges as well. DOJ opened a civil rights investigation into the attack. An attack Attorney General Jeff Sessions yesterday said appears to meet the definition of domestic terrorism. Steve, Abby, and Pete, when we've been standing down here, terrorism is the word a lot of people in this community come up and say to us. They call this attack terrorism. They consider it terrorism, and there's been a lot of frustration that more people aren't calling it that. We also have heard from DOJ officials or sources close to the DOJ investigation that investigators are also looking to see whether or not Fields had any help planning this attack. Back to you guys.
All right, Ellison Barber live in Charlottesville, Virginia. Thank you. Meanwhile, the President of the United States returned to New York City. It was not the hero's welcome he probably would have preferred. A number of people were arrested, and a lot of people steamed at his initial comments after the attack on Saturday in Charlottesville, which many felt was too vague. They wanted him to be more specific.
You did not want to be anywhere near Midtown Manhattan yesterday afternoon. He's apparently going to be here for the next couple of days. You can expect these protesters to come back out today. They're riled up. They're angry. They don't feel like his response was the right one. But Star Parker, founder of Center for Urban Renewal and Education, he was on and says Trump did the right thing. Take a listen.
The point at that point was that the alt-right and the alt-left met in an American city over a very local issue. It escalated into a riot very quickly, and he needed to calm it down before it spread across the country. No, he was exactly on point. There is an alt-right and there is a alt-left, and this war between the two sides has been going on for an awful long time.
Okay, and so Starr said she felt that the president's initial comments on Saturday were appropriate, and yet he came out once again yesterday. There's a report in Axios that apparently Chief of Staff John Kelly said, you've got to be specific, Mr. President, and the story will not go away until you are. And so that's why he cited the groups by name and called violence repugnant and racist and talked about how racism is evil.
Of course, it's not going away either way, because the so-called mainstream media, which they're not, it's just the left-wing media, are going to go after him no matter what. So today they're saying it took too long. It's triggering more outrage. He didn't say it first. You said in another network you saw a commentator saying, well, he didn't come out in the first sentence and say it. He waited 2 sentences. It's like no matter what he does. And Larry Elder was on a program yesterday, made some really strong comments on why this happens. Take a listen.
The reason for all of this attention, the reason the media is covering this thing like it's a Super Bowl, is because of this narrative that Donald Trump blatantly reached out to white racists to get elected. If that's the case, how is it that he got less percentage of white voters than Mitt Romney did, a greater percentage of minority voters, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians than Mitt Romney did? The blacks, Hispanics, and Asians were too stupid to realize they were joining a movement with a bunch of white racists, and the white racists were too stupid to realize they were joining a movement with a bunch of people of color that they don't like. Come on.
Some strong words there. Look, he is in a position where, among a lot of people, no matter what he says, no matter how long into his speech or statement he actually calls these groups out, I think it was the right thing for him to do, to call them out, because that's also his brand. You think about President Trump, he is known for being the first out of the gate to call something for what it is, whether it is Islamic terrorism, you name it. So I think there were a lot of people surprised that he didn't do that this time around. It was the right thing for him to do yesterday, and I think now it's time for the country to move on and for us to come together. That was his message yesterday.
Well, that's not what the protesters aren't moving on. They're holding signs calling him a racist, and when they call him a racist or imply that, they're calling every single person that voted for them because they want a wall or they want some law and order. Somehow you're a racist. They're going to conflate this discussion to the very end, as Larry Elder said.
And what was the protest initially based on in Virginia?
Charlottesville.
Exactly right. The Robert E. Lee statue, which they have renamed that particular park. And now there is news that there are a number of statues in a number of communities that are being taken down. That's Raleigh, North Carolina, also in Kentucky, Gainesville, Atlanta, and Baltimore. They are trying to remove them, which is a blow against heritage and historical memory, many people say.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, in some places, they're going through the formal process of protesting and petitioning the legislature and the governor. In other places, like here in Raleigh, North Carolina, like you saw, that's just vigilantes saying we're going to go to public land, tie a rope around it, and pull it down.
Vandalism.
It's vandalism. Will it be treated as such? Listen, you can have grievances or not like that statue, but it was put up at a time for a reason. And when you decide to ignore your history, I think it makes you more ignorant about your sins of the past or whatever happened in the past. I'm interested in our viewers, and I know we're going to ask them to let us know what you think.
They're good people on both sides of this debate, and I think it's an important one for us to have in this country. So we do want to know from you, do you think that it's important to keep the statues up to remember history, or is it time that we take them down? Send us your comments to friends@foxnews.com.
But again, where does it end? Because our founders, many of which were slave owners. Do we discredit them because they were the sins of that time? Does it stop at the Confederacy? You know, the logic of this leads in very interesting places. So let us know, friends@foxnews.com.
Indeed.
All right, coming up, a horrifying and deadly accident on the set of a major Hollywood movie. Watch this.
No actor lost control, went across the street, over a curb, and through a glass pane window into a building across the street. And just so actor is aware, the stunt actor was airborne through the building.
What went so wrong? That's coming up.
And the president has his back. Senator Luther Strange joins us live as the polls open for Alabama's special election. Can he keep his seat? We'll ask.
All eyes on this Tuesday morning are on Alabama, where the race to fill Jeff Sessions' vacant Senate seat comes to a head today. Luther Strange and Roy Moore topping the polls, with Strange getting the president's endorsement.
I need Luther to help us out. Go to those polls and vote for Luther Strange.
But is that endorsement enough to keep the seat? Join us right now on a very busy day, Senator Luther Strange. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
You know, there are a number of qualified Republicans running for this particular open Senate seat, which you currently have. Why do you think the president picked you?
Well, I think it's based on a couple of factors. One, we've developed a personal friendship. We like each other, and we have the same goals, to make America great again, to implement his agenda. That's what the people of my state want, and that's what I've been doing from day one in the Senate since I took Jeff Sessions' place in February. I've done everything you could possibly do to support the president's agenda, And believe me, that's what the people of Alabama want to see done.
All right. Taking a look at Real Clear political average on this Tuesday morning. Right now, it's pretty much a horse race between you and Judge Roy Moore. He leads 32%. You've got 28%. And then Mo Brooks, 17%. Let me ask you about what you want to accomplish in the U.S. Senate, because there are a lot of people, Senator, who are looking in, and they're disgusted by what happened with the health care vote a couple of weeks ago.
No. Well, nobody's more disgusted than I am. I spent 6 years as Attorney General suing the Obama administration and winning on cases across the board. And came to Washington expecting that health care vote would go our way. I was just couldn't believe that we couldn't get that done due to a few members who decided not to fulfill their promise. So what I want to get done is common sense, conservative solutions to the problems that actually affect people in their real lives. That's what President Trump wants to do. Obviously the Obamacare disaster is unfolding before our eyes. That really affects my state. But we also have to get tax relief to our citizens. We have to get regulatory relief. I'd like to see an infrastructure bill. The president is a great leader on that issue. And then I'd like to see the wall built. I mean, these are things that we should be doing. That's why right before I left Washington, I complained to the leadership that we shouldn't even be taking a recess or whatever it's called. We should be up there working like the American people are doing every day.
Sure. In hearing some of the president's comments over the last week or two, I think he is of the opinion, Mr. Strange, that it's not a done deal. There's still an opportunity for a vote on health care. Are you of the same opinion?
Absolutely. I think we owe it to the American people. I certainly think our people of Alabama expect that to happen. And I appreciate the president's leadership on that. We cannot fail to act on that. I mean, it's a catastrophe in my state and around this country.
All right. Well, the big vote is today. If nobody winds up with 50%, there's going to be a runoff. Do you have a prediction for the outcome tonight?
Well, I hate to make predictions in elections. I've been fortunate to be elected twice statewide as Attorney General. I predict that President Trump's endorsement will be incredibly important because people want his agenda passed. I want his agenda passed. And I couldn't be more honored that he has given me his endorsement and full support. I think that'll make a difference today. All right.
Senator Luther Strange joined us today from the beautiful city of Birmingham, Alabama. Sir, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. All right, 7:20 here in New York City. Remember that school that said no 9/11 memorials? They might trigger someone. Well, some students didn't like that answer, and they fought back, and they won, and that is next. The story from SMU. Plus, former campaign manager for Donald Trump, Corey Lewandowski, is going to be joining us. We've got a busy hour and, let's see, 40 minutes left on Fox and Friends, live from New York City and Washington, D.C.
Good Tuesday morning. Hope you're having a good one so far. We're back with some headlines. He said he was out for blood, but his plan to blow up an Oklahoma City bank blew up in his face. Jerry Drake Varnell arrested after he drove what he thought was a stolen van packed with thousands of pounds of ammunition to an alley next to the bank. Turns out the bomb, it was a fake. The cell phone he thought was a detonator dialed law enforcement instead. You can't make this up. Undercover investigators had been tracking him for months. They say he hates the government and wanted to mimic the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing that left 168 people dead. And Iran's president is threatening to quit the nuclear deal within hours if the U.S. continues to impose new sanctions. Hassan Rouhani issuing the warning in a televised speech. This warning comes after an Iranian drone buzzes a Navy aircraft for the second time this month. The unarmed drone getting within 1,000 feet of a plane flying off the USS Nimitz in the Persian Gulf. The Navy calling it, quote, unsafe and unprofessional. Pete?
Thanks, Jillian. Well, a memorial to the September 11th terror attacks at Southern Methodist University in Dallas will remain on the campus main lawn this year after some intense criticism when the school decided to move it to a less prominent location. SMU originally planned to move the memorial to shield students from, quote, harmful or triggering messages. But a number of student organizations fought back, including our next two guests, Drew Wicker, president of the SMU College Republicans, and Julia Cantu, president of the SMU Feminist Equality Movement. Drew and Julia, thanks for joining us. Most of our viewers will look at this and say, wait, we've got the College Republicans sitting with the Feminist Equality Movement, which feminism can be on both the right and left, but traditionally found on the left as a political movement. What brought you, first of all, I'll go to you, Drew. What happened here? Lay out what happened and why you initially responded.
So what initially happened was I also serve as the co-founder and vice president of the Young Americans for Freedom at SMU, and we do an annual 9/11 memorial on Dallas Hall, which serves as the heart and foundation and symbol of our campus. And so whenever we requested to have our demonstration there, like we do every single year, we received a response back from the SMU administration that we were not allowed to have that memorial and that it would be moved to Momac Park. And the reason that we were given was because that those demonstrations could be found to be triggering, harmful, or harassing to other students. And so the reason we actually got involved together is we decided as a group of conservative organizations that we wanted to take action, and we decided this is a great time to work on something that we can all get on board together.
Sure.
And so I reached out to several liberal organizations, and they all decided to join forces with us because at the end of the day, free speech is something that we can all get around, and it's a common shared value of this entire American culture.
Julia, so Drew sent you a text. I looked at what you sent us and said, hey, would you consider this? And you did. Was there any hesitation, and have you gotten any pushback from, frankly, reaching across the aisle, to say it proverbially, and working on this?
Right. Well, me and Drew had worked together last semester, and we kind of built up a foundation of respect between college Republicans and Fem. And it's something that I had to consider signing on to the letter to send to admin was thinking about women's well-being on campus and considering the university's intention behind the policy and weighing that with free speech. And overall, I think I decided that human rights involves women's rights, and freedom of speech is a human right, as well as the fact that these conversations that take place as a result of the displays on campus are extremely important, and they bring a lot of these women's issues in and out of the classroom.
So, Drew, if you would, why would a 9/11 memorial with American flags be triggering?
You know, I couldn't fathom an answer to that. I mean, to me personally, it's a symbol of freedom, it's a symbol of pride, and I know that we've had some students that have claimed, or, well, anonymously, that they were offended by the memorial, but I couldn't tell you that, sir.
Sure. Julia, I don't know who you voted for in the election, but a lot of people will look at this and say, if conservatives and Republicans and Democrats, left and right, can work together on something like this, can't they get something, couldn't they work together on something big, maybe in Washington, D.C.? Could this be a lesson for folks on the left who are resisting this president at any turn to say, hey, let's find a couple of places where we can work together, where we have common ground?
Well, exactly. I think it's so important to really, in the ways that we've worked with each other, sitting down and having a genuine interest in trying to understand the other person's point of view. I would say that it's been extremely advantageous to both of our organizations to figure out that we do have some common ground, and that's going to help us in the future.
Wow, good stuff. Drew Wicker and Julia Cantu. This is true tolerance is tolerating differences of opinion, and diversity also includes diversity of thought. You are both a demonstration of that this morning. Thank you for stepping up. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. All right. Next, former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. And what's so wrong with this picture? Apparently, a lot. A college student who says she's being viciously bullied after simply posing for a photograph with our vice president. Plus, he hasn't even officially announced his Senate run, but turns out Kid Rock might not even be able to? Come on. We'll bring it to you.
Welcome back. Let's go out to San Diego, California. Why? Because we can. Somebody's going to push a button in the control room, and there is Corey Lewandowski, once upon a time the campaign manager for Donald Trump. Good morning to you, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
Good morning.
It's nice and early out there.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, Corey, there's a headline on Drudge right now, and it's a Fox News alert. The headline on Drudge says, Doomsday canceled. North Korea has decided not to launch any missiles toward Guam this week. That after Kim Jong-un met with his top military officials yesterday, and they essentially, Corey said, you can't win. So now it sounds like, in the face of the tough rhetoric of the president last week, talking about fire and fury and locked and loaded, North Korea is backing down.
Well, look, I'm not surprised by this at all. What we have seen from previous administrations for 30 years is trying to coddle North Korea, trying to work with them. What this president said was, you don't want to mess with me. He's a man of business. He and General Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, was very clear. If North Korea launches a missile at us, General Mattis said it will be a declaration of war. And we are the world's greatest superpower. The President of the United States was very clear that if North Korea tries to do something against the United States, he will react swiftly, decisively, and it will be a complete annihilation. And I don't think they're ready for that.
Yeah, coming down hard. We'll see how all of that plays out. But, Corey, I want to get your thoughts on everything that's happened since Charlottesville and the riots there and the deaths. It was a horrific day on Saturday, but the president came out again yesterday giving a strong statement about unity in this country and directly calling out these hate groups, the KKK, the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists. He's been criticized, though, saying this is too little, too late. He only did this to please the media. You know the president almost better than anybody. Was this about doing the right thing, or was he trying to please the media?
Look, the president, I think, has been very clear that he's not in this to please the media. He's in it to serve the American people. And what he said in the very most basic terms was, this was a disgusting event. The fact that lives were lost down in Charlottesville was a terrible tragedy. There's no place in civilized society for this. He's condemned this in the very strongest terms humanly possible. But unfortunately, the mainstream media, the liberal left, they don't want to give him the credit which he deserves. You know, you have to remember this. The president was very forceful the day that this happened. He came out and made another statement about this from Washington, D.C. yesterday, and they still don't want to give him the credit because that's not the narrative that they want to have on the president. They want to continue to say things which are factually inaccurate, and we saw his tweet yesterday where he said, even though he made additional statements, the fake news won't give him the credit. Yeah. That's exactly the truth. If this was anybody else, they'd be praising the president for his swift answer on Saturday when it happened, and the follow-up yesterday when he went out again and criticized this disgusting, terrible display of anti-Semitism that should never have taken place.
Corey, it's got to be interesting to make decisions inside a White House where no matter what you do, you will be criticized, even if you are correct. Would you have made the same? Would you have advised the president differently at all? Because he came out and generally said, "I condemn all this hatred and bigotry," and then 2 days later was more specific. But would you have handled it differently, or is all these calls being made by the president?
Well, I think what's important to know is this, is that there is no place in a civilized society for any type of this hatred. We have to all get along. We're one great country. We're the greatest country in the world. And this should not be acceptable on any side. And I think what the president was trying to say was, it's not acceptable on the alt-left. It's not acceptable on the alt-right. It's not acceptable anywhere in a civilized society. So this shouldn't be held, people should be held accountable for their actions, regardless of where they stand on the right or the left. This is unacceptable. That's what the president said. He reiterated that message in the strongest possible terms yesterday from the White House, and the media says, well, it was too little too late. I think that's a terrible thing. I think that the media should be embracing the president's words, saying he's trying to bring the country together. He's committed federal law enforcement resources to go down and make sure that it is fully prosecuted down there as what now looks to be a hate crime and or a domestic terrorist activity. So the president's doing everything he can to make sure that the Department of Justice is involved and we're holding people accountable. All
right. Speaking of the Department of Justice, Corey, let's take folks back to January 20th, Inauguration Day in Washington, D.C. A number of people, I think a couple hundred, were actually arrested because of the rioting and things like that the day that Donald Trump became President of the United States officially. The Department of Justice is now asking the web hosting provider DreamHost to give up 1.3 million Internet addresses from a website that organized these particular protests. And, you know, that can include names and addresses and telephone numbers of the people who simply went to the website. To some, it looks like, you know, that's an invasion of privacy. I was just looking to see what was going on. Do you think this is appropriate?
Steve, what I think is appropriate is holding people accountable. You know, I was there on Inauguration Day. I had the privilege of sitting on the platform when the President of the United States was sworn in. And then what we saw was the rioting in downtown, people throwing, you know, stones and bricks through buildings and glass for no reason. You know, and look, you have to hold people accountable. There were a number of arrests that day. But if you can prevent this from going on, moving forward, you should absolutely be able to do that. I don't understand why people continue to destroy buildings which have nothing to do with it, overturn cars, light things on fire, and think it's a semblance of free speech. It's not a semblance of free speech. It's vandalism. You talked about it earlier in the show. When people take matters into their own hands and they decide to rip down statues or destroy things, personal property or public property, because they think it's the right thing to do, that's called vandalism. You need to hold people accountable
on all
for
sides
it.
of the aisle. Well, Corey, staying with the law here, California is now following in Chicago's footsteps, suing the Department of Justice over threats to withhold federal funds to sanctuary cities. We are still debating this. When you talk about sanctuary cities, there should be issues that just aren't political. When you talk about just common sense, right? You have illegals in this country that are committing crimes that should be reported that are not. What is going on here?
Well, Newt Gingrich actually wrote a great piece on this on Fox.com just a few days ago about the sanctuary city component of this. And look, he talks about Chicago. 4,331 people shot in Chicago last year, 761 people killed. You know what? Law enforcement has to have the ability to do their job. But what that means is we should be able to crack down. And part of the component of getting money, if you're a sanctuary city, is you have to allow the Department of Justice to come in and question the people who are being held as illegal aliens. They're coming in and committing crimes. Look, what you have to do is you have to be pro-American for a change. That's what this president has said. It has to be pro-jobs, pro-American families. This isn't anti-illegal immigration. This is pro-American, which means if Kate Steinle was still alive today, she'd be out talking about the fact that illegals who have been deported 5 times probably shouldn't be in this country anymore. California has been a haven for activity, for people to come into this country illegally, commit crimes, get caught, get deported, and then come back. This is a terrible cycle. And for the first time, we're going to stop giving money to sanctuary cities so they have to enforce the laws of the people who are here illegally. Absolutely the right thing to do.
The kicker in all of this is just enforcing existing law. It's called the rule of law. Corey Lewandowski, thanks a lot. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Jillian for some other headlines we're following. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you at home as well. A horrifying and deadly accident on the set of Deadpool 2. Stuntwoman Joy S.J. Harris losing control of her motorcycle and crashing through a glass window. TMZ releasing the 911 call.
No, after lost control, went across the street, over a curb, and through a glass pane window into a building across the street. And just so ACA is aware, the stunt actor was airborne through the building.
Harris was the first ever African-American female road racer, and this was her debut movie. Deadpool star Ryan Reynolds responding to the crash, tweeting in part, quote, "We're heartbroken, shocked, and devastated." A college student says she's being bullied after posting a photo with Vice President Mike Pence on Facebook. This photo you see right here. One friend even asked why she would stand next to someone who is, quote, "a threat to human rights everywhere." The junior from Scripps College in California says she didn't make a political comment when she posted it. She just wanted to share her excitement about interning with Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rogers. Take a look at this. These nuns just can't kick their habit of rollerblading. They're known as the Holy Rollers, skating around Corpus Christi, Texas in their full religious attire, and their congregation of fans, it's growing.
A lot of selfies. A lot of people want pictures.
Well, we did meet a group of like roller derby women, and so like they were all kind of dressed the same, and we were all kind of dressed the same, and so we met each other, and it was actually really cool. They invited us to their roller derby match.
The sisters hope to show another side to being a nun that isn't quite so serious. Gotta love that. That's a look at your headlines. Abby, I will send it down to you guys. What do you think? You like it?
I love that
Great.
story. They're just having a blast out there.
Yes.
Good for
Not
them.
wearing helmets.
Not taking life too seriously.
Not wearing helmets.
You are not a fan of
I'm not
helmets.
pro-helmet. I'm not pro-helmet, and so I love the fact that they're just rolling with it.
Kids,
they know where they're
wear
going
your
if
helmets.
they fall. They know where they're going if they fall. They're going up to the big guy in the sky. They're nuns.
Let's just hope not immediately.
All right, coming up, one of the CEOs on the President's Manufacturing Council stepping down over what happened in Charlottesville. This morning, the President responds in a way only that he can. Our own Stuart Barney is with us, and he's going to weigh in next. Come on in, Stuart.
Hello, Stuart.
Welcome back. Well, Merck CEO Kenneth Frazier quitting the White House Manufacturing Council over the President's initial response to the Charlottesville attack.
President Trump wasting no time hitting back, tweeting this. He said, Merck Pharma is a leader in higher and higher drug prices, while at the same time taking jobs out of the U.S. Bring jobs back and lower prices.
Here to react is host of Varney and Company on the Fox Business Network, Stuart Varney. Good morning to you.
First of all, what is this Manufacturing Advisory Council all about? Well, it's 28 CEOs and union leaders brought together by the president to advise him on bringing jobs back to America. Mr. Frazier has resigned, as he says, as a matter of personal conscience. In other words, he's putting his own political views ahead of his responsibility as the CEO of a huge drug company. He's walked away from the table and he's incurred the anger of his president. Now, that's a very difficult situation that he has walked into quite willingly.
By injecting personal politics into it?
He's put politics ahead of economics and business and his role on that council. He's put his own personal views ahead of his responsibility as the guy who runs a very big company.
And he's not the only one who has, right? The CEO of Under Armour.
5. In the latest round after Charlottesville, 3 CEOs have resigned. The guy who leads Under Armour, Intel, and Merck, okay, drug company, etc., etc. Previously, 2 other CEOs, Elon Musk at Tesla and Robert Iger at Disney, they'd walked away largely because the president had withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accord. All of them are basically taking a political stand against the president. That's what they're doing.
Is it smart business to do something like that so publicly?
I don't think so. In my opinion, no. You may want to set yourself apart and your company, set them apart from the presidency, but you're setting yourself apart from tax cuts, deregulation, and growing the economy. Do you really want to do that? I don't think so.
Did they really think that a consumer or even, folks that are in these companies look to the CEO's participation, say, in a manufacturing council and say, well, that means you endorse everything this president does?
Right. As Mr. Frazier said, it was a matter of personal conscience that took him out of this council and took his company out of the council.
Well, another rally this morning from what we're hearing on Wall Street. How much of this has to do with the tougher rhetoric on North Korea?
It's all about North Korea. It appears that they have backed down. I can't remember the North Koreans backing down from anything any time before, but now they say they're going to reconsider the plan to send missiles towards Guam. Looks like a win for Mr. Trump. That's what I think. He's put pressure on China. China's put pressure on the North Koreans. Mr. Mathis, I hesitate to say Mad Dog Mathis, I shouldn't do that, but nonetheless, he's laid down the law. He says, don't you do it. Don't you fire off those missiles. And they're listening.
They are.
And the numbers are speaking.
And the Dow Industrials will be up another 50, 60, 70 points when the market opens today. You could hit another record high today.
Wow.
We'll see.
That.
Good stuff. Thanks, Stuart.
Sure
Thank
thing.
you watching over on Fox Business.
Gotcha. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. Meanwhile, protesters toppling Confederate statutes in the wake of those Virginia riots. Are they erasing history, or is it about time to take them down? Laura Ingraham is going to weigh in on that topic coming up shortly.
And our own Todd Pyro is live in Alabama having breakfast with friends as voters go to the polls for the state's special election. Todd, it is a packed house in there.
It is a packed house. It is a rowdy crowd. We're serving up pancakes. We're talking to the folks. We're going to have a lot more from them when we come back here on Fox and Friends. I said they were rowdy, didn't I? When we come back.
All eyes on Alabama this morning, where the polls are opening soon for today's big special election.
So what are the voters there saying this morning? Let's check back in with our own Todd Pyro. He's talking to them at Jim's Restaurant in Prattville, Alabama. Todd, good morning.
Good morning to you all back there. Yeah, this is a very Republican area. In fact, this county here, 75% of the people here voted for President Trump. Very Republican, but it's a house divided today. We have 3 main candidates that pundits say are in the running that could win this thing. We're going to ask who's voting for Mr. Moore? Who's voting for Mr. Strange? Yay. Who's voting for Mr. Brooks?
All right.
You guys didn't say who you're voting for.
Pittman, baby. Pittman to the house.
All right, these guys are Pittman. We're going to talk to the ones that the pundits say are in the big 3 here. We're going to talk to this gentleman. Al, you are voting for Mr. Brooks. Why?
I'm voting for Mr. Brooks because Luther Strange was appointed to succeed Jeff Sessions by Governor Bentley, and Governor Bentley didn't support Trump during the election.
All right.
I think that Roy Moore, while he's a good man, he's got good character, I think he's a little bit over the top, and I don't want him to give Alabamians
All right, we're going to ask somebody. I apologize for cutting you off, because we got to have somebody defend Mr. Moore, and that's Paul. Paul, why are you interested in voting for Roy Moore?
As a state representative, I've worked with Mr. Moore, and when he served as the Chief Justice here, and I've worked with his administration, and they were above board and everything else. He stands for the Second Amendment as far as First Amendment as far as our religious liberties are concerned. That is very big in Alabama. The Bible Belt is here in Alabama, and people want to get back to our moral fibers and everything else. And
now, the individual who Mr. Trump endorsed, Luther Strange, you're a big fan of Luther Strange, Barry. Explain why.
Yes, sir, because Mr. Strange said he's going to help Mr. Trump out. And I figure, well, why not give him a chance to see what happens, you know?
Understood.
Yeah.
And finally, Dale, I got to ask you, you are not voting. Please explain why.
Well, as I told you, I voted in every election since 1964 when I voted for Goldwater. But these days, I don't think there's a dime's worth of difference between Democrats and Republicans. I don't think it makes any difference who we send up there because they get captured by the establishment.
Understood. That's it from Jim's Restaurant in Alabama, and the debate continues, of course. War Eagle or
I love the spirit. Thank you, Todd.
That's it. Just not as much passion for the politics as there is for the sport.
That's true. That's pretty common, though.
Yeah, it is.
But today is game day for politics down there.
That's right.
We'll see what happens.
Meanwhile, protesters toppling Confederate statues in the wake of those Virginia riots. Are they erasing history, or is it about time to make a change? Or Ingram on that, coming up next.